Excellence in the classroom, empowering parents, serving educators. That's the Arizona Department of Education. And this is Around the Horn, where we talk about all things education with Arizona Schools Chief Tom Horne.
Today we have as our interviewee one of my real heroes, Riley Gaines, who has fought the good fight to keep biological boys out of girls' sports and who has a lot of important personal experiences in that fight. Riley, welcome to Around the Horn.
Well, I am so glad to be on, so thank you. And thank you for everything that you've done to, of course, in the same mission of defending women's sports.
Yes, as you know, I've been defending a lawsuit brought by two large New York firms where they wanted to say that it's unconstitutional for us to have a law that stops males from playing in female sports. They sued 4 defendants. 3 of them conceded. I was the only defendant that's carrying the fight, and we'll go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court if we have to be sure that boys are not making it so that girls can't be champions, can't compete because boys have bigger bone structure, bigger muscles. It's just not fair for boys to compete in girls' sports. Riley, do you have any comment on that lawsuit before we go ahead?
I think it's crucial. I think it's litigation that we need to see to ultimately make change. And so, again, like I said, it's leadership like yours that girls for generations to come will be indebted to you for, and to people like you who are standing for women even when it's a tough climate. You're labeled as all kinds of names. I know, I know, everything under the sun they will call you for simply saying girls are deserving of equal opportunities, privacy, and safety in their sports. But litigation is crucial, so I applaud you and your fight, and I'm anything I can do, I'm right here for you as well.
Thank you, Riley. Well, tell us about your experience where you had to compete against Leah Thomas.
So this all happened my senior year in college. I was competing at the University of Kentucky. Thomas was competing at University of Pennsylvania, where he swam 3 years on the men's team at UPenn before deciding to switch to the women's team, where the year prior, when competing against the men, ranked 462nd at best, to then dominating the women. Thomas and I ultimately, really what thrusted me into the position that I'm in now is that first day of our national championships, which is the fastest meet in the world. Really, it's more comparatively, it's more competitive and faster than the Olympics because of how many fast swimmers the U.S. has. And so that first day, Thomas won a national title in the 500 freestyle, again beating out Olympians, American record holders, the most impressive female swimmers this world has ever seen by body lengths. Becoming the first man to win a Division I NCAA title in the women's category. And the second day, Thomas and I raced each other in the 200 freestyle, to which we dove off the blocks, we swam 8 laps of freestyle, we touched the wall at the end, looked up at the scoreboard, and almost impossibly enough, we had tied, meaning we went the exact same time down to the 100th of a second, which is pretty rare when you're racing for, a minute and 40 seconds. But we get out of the water, we go behind the awards podium, and the NCAA official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job, you two, but you tied. And we only have 1 trophy, so we're gonna give the trophy to Leah. Sorry, Riley, you don't get one." I was so taken aback by this. And so I asked him, why? Why are you adamant on giving the trophy to a man in the women's 200 freestyle? This is everything that Title IX was passed to prevent from happening. And he looked at me, and this is what, again, really was the final straw for me, because the official looked at me and said, "We've been advised that when photos are being taken, it's crucial that Leah is holding the trophy. Sorry, Riley, you don't get one. You can pose with this one, but you have to give yours back. You go home empty-handed. Leah takes the trophy home. End of story." Like I said, that was all I needed to hear, because it made clear to me what was happening. And that was that they were reducing everything we had worked our entire lives for down to a photo op to validate the feelings and the identity of a male at the expense of our own. After that, I was no longer willing to wait for someone else to stick up for us, because I was truly at this time, I thought surely someone else would, you know, a coach, a dad, a mom, someone with political power, someone within the NCAA. I thought someone who was supposed to be protecting us would protect us. But that's when I decided this has to come from us as women, as female athletes. We need to be the ones to take a stand.
And you were subject to terrible intimidation in that situation. Please tell our audience about that.
Yeah, absolutely. The way our universities manipulated us, deceived us, really emotionally blackmailed us into submission and silence is nothing short of criminal, I think, because they totally took away our freedom of speech. They told us, you know, your school has already taken your stance for you. Remember, you signed a scholarship, and when you signed that scholarship, you gave your right to speak in your own personal capacity away. Remember whose name you wear across your chest and across your cap, because it's not your own. You represent this university. They told us, you know, you'll never get a job if you speak out. They told us you'll never get into grad school, you'll lose your friends, you'll lose your scholarship and your playing time if you speak out. They told us if we did speak out and any harm whatsoever were to come towards Thomas's way, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, through social media, whatever that harm looked like, then we were solely responsible. Making us responsible for a potential death is what they said. They told us we would be murderers if we spoke out, that we would have blood on our hands if we advocated for fair play and privacy in areas of undressing. And believe it or not, it's effective in keeping young girls quiet, telling them they'll never get a job. We know swimming was a means to an end, and it's ultimately the reason we go to college is to get a job or get into grad school. And the thought of being labeled a transphobe, our employer knowing that anytime they look up our name, it terrified us. It terrified me.
That's what you were told, that if you spoke out, you'd be identified as a transphobe, you couldn't get into graduate school, you couldn't get a job, all these kinds of threats against you.
Repeatedly. They told us, you will regret this if you do.
And you, in addition to being an outstanding athlete, you were also an outstanding student. You were planning to go to dental school.
I was. I was the SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year. I was the SEC Community Service Leader of the Year. I won the highest humanitarian award offered in the state of Kentucky, the Sullivan Award. All things that really mattered to me, my academics, my service. And yes, I was ready to go to dental school. Had put my deposit down, scored in the top percentile of the dental admissions test, which is the test to get into dental school. Was ready to specialize in endodontics. But all of that, it seemed unimportant to me when I saw the scale of what this topic, this issue.
But you were threatened that you wouldn't get into dental school if you spoke out.
I was.
And that's a terrible kind of intimidation.
Definitely.
To puncture your dreams, not only in athletics, but your whole career, if you spoke the truth.
Definitely. And that's why so many of us continue to remain silent, because they don't want to subject themselves to that sort of backlash. They would rather take the safe and convenient and secure way of putting their face down, zipping their mouth, and choosing to throw their moral compass out of the window entirely.
But you decided to be brave and speak out.
I did.
As it turned out, you got into dental school just fine.
My dental school told me they loved that I was speaking out. They told me that, you know, I'm clearly not in dental school now, but they told me, we will hold your deposit, we will hold your seat for whenever you want to come. We love what you're fighting for, keep going. Dental school will always be here, but the issue you're fighting for and the relevancy behind it won't always be, and so pursue that for now. And so to me, that was like a God wink. It was like God winking at me, telling me, this is what's for you. This is what I have for you right now.
And our country had a big fight to pass Title IX so that girls could have their own sports that they could compete in and that they could excel. And what's going on now is a complete contradiction of Title IX, even though it was passed by the Congress.
Absolutely. Title IX is, of course, supposed to prevent discrimination on the basis of sex. But what myself and my teammates and my competitors and girls across the country in the NCAA right now are facing is explicitly discrimination on the basis of our sex, which is Title IX is a federal civil rights law that's being violated. And so it goes back to litigation. When federal laws, or any law for that matter, is violated, a lawsuit is in order. And so I think the NCAA, I believe they need to be sued. They're banking on the fact that people my age, 21-year-old girls, they're banking on the fact that we won't sue because they know it's a financial investment. They know it's a time investment, an emotional investment. They know that we're probably not willing to do that. But I think it's necessary and certainly something that needs to be considered.
Well, we've all read stories in the paper about girls who work really hard at their sports with dreams of making the varsity team or perhaps getting a scholarship or maybe the Olympics, and then they have to compete against a male, and their dreams are shattered and they're devastated, and one wonders why isn't the country feeling sympathetic for those girls?
And that's a question I constantly beg, because that's the argument. The argument is pro-woman. It's not anti-anything. The argument should be centered around woman and fairness and truth, reality. And so I'll tell you, when I testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee about the issue of men and women's sports. And I will never forget Senator Dick Durbin in his opening monologue, the ranking member. In his opening monologue, he went on to say, you know, what message are we sending to our trans youth? And he gets to me and I say, Senator Durbin, what message are you sending to women? Because right now, you're telling me that I don't matter, that my younger sister doesn't matter. Our privacy, our equal opportunities, our dignity, our fairness, our feelings. You're telling me that doesn't matter. What matters to you and your colleagues is protecting the feelings and the identity of a male, even at the expense of ours. And you know what we call that? We call that misogyny. And it's utterly regressive, yet they're doing it in the name of progress. This is taking us back at least 51 years to when Title IX was implemented in 1972.
Now, you decided to be brave and campaign on a national level on this issue.
Absolutely. I have traveled state to state, again, testifying at the state level, but also at the federal level. 23 states have now passed some sort of fairness in women's sports bill, which is phenomenal. So lots of legislative work being done there and traction and momentum moving forward. But also other pieces of legislation. I'm working with the Independent Women's Forum and Voice right now. We've developed a new bill called the Women's Bill of Rights, which essentially just codifies that term woman. It defines what a woman is in law, which is crazy that that's necessary, that that's needed, because in the nearly 250 years we've been established as a country, we've never struggled to understand or needed to define woman, but unfortunately it is necessary now.
Well, everybody who's had ninth grade biology knows that a woman has two X chromosomes and a man has an X and a Y chromosome.
I vote for you as President, Superintendent Horne. It's that easy. Certainly President of the NCAA. I think that's all. It's that simple. Yet we have people overcomplicating it. And these people, they're unelected bureaucrats and officials who are just reinterpreting this word to mean what they want it to mean. But it really is as simple as your innate biology inside you, the chromosomal level. It's inherent in our bones and our DNA. So definitely that easy.
So tell our audience about the intimidation that you face when you're campaigning on a national level.
I have been, again, for simply saying men are men, women are women, you can't change your sex, and each sex is deserving of equal opportunities. I've been assaulted, I've been punched, I've been held for ransom, I've been spit on, had glass bottles thrown at me, drinks poured on me, of course the most obscene, awful things, hateful things you could yell at someone, I've had yelled at me. And again, they do it in the name of love and inclusion and tolerance and acceptance and welcoming and all of those different things. But it is the most, I've been met with the most vitriol, again, violence, and really soullessness, hatefulness that you could imagine.
Please describe what happened at San Francisco State University.
Yeah, so I went to San Francisco State University, and that's where a group of protesters, I mean actually hundreds of protesters, entered into the room where I was speaking. They turned off the lights, they rushed to the front, they attacked me, and they locked me in a room for 4 hours.
Well, before that, they were punching you, is that right?
Yeah, they were. After that, that's when they locked me in the room for 4 hours. demanding I had to pay the money if I wanted to make it home to see my family safely again.
And what were they screaming at you from outside that room?
Oh my gosh, it was 4 hours of screaming. They were telling me, of course, your typical things, calling me transphobic, homophobic, racist, white supremacist, a Nazi, domestic terrorist, a fascist.
And you just want girls to be able to compete in their own sports and not have their dreams shattered by males that have bigger muscles, bigger bones, are born with all those advantages.
Watch it, because that makes you a Nazi, apparently. Yeah, that's the whole message. Yet they're not even willing to listen to my message. They have their minds turned off. Their hearts aren't open to even hearing what I have to say. They read the headlines of anti-trans swimmer wants to ban trans athletes. That's not what I want. Everyone should play sports. Just play where it is safe and where it is fair. We cannot compromise safety and fairness at the expense of inclusion.
Actually, some women have been severely injured by males in their sports.
Definitely. I could list tens of examples, hundreds really, off the top of my head. One young girl, Peyton McNabb, a volleyball player, she was playing high school, senior in high school. A boy competing on the other team jumps up, spikes the ball. She's knocked unconscious still to this day. Which is a year, it happened last September of 2022, so a year and some change later, she still has vision impairment. She's still partially paralyzed on her right side. She's not playing college sports like she thought she was because her memory is impaired. She has to have special accommodations for testing at school now because of the brain injury. All the while, the boy got a scholarship to play in college on a women's team.
All because of the cosmically unfair thing of making her compete against males that have so many physical advantages.
Exactly.
Riley, you're really a role model for all of us. You've been brave. You put out your time and exposure to terrible things in order to carry a message that should be a common sense message that girls should be able to compete in their own sports and be able to excel, which was the whole idea of Title IX. And so as a role model for us, I'll let you make a final statement on Around the Horne.
My final statement is to not wait until you're directly impacted to take a stand. Because if every single person waits until it affects them, it's too late. Like I did, truly, I waited until I was affected. But now being in the position that I'm in, seeing how many people this really affects, and really the broader picture, okay, of course women's sports and women's spaces, but really how we're denying the truth, objective truth. That's a pretty chilling thought for any society once that starts to happen. Ever read 1984 and what happens when we start saying 2 + 2 is 5, even though we know it's not a good ending. And so don't wait until you're impacted. Take a stand for, again, science, for logic, for reasoning, for common sense, for truth, for reality, for women, because we need everyone in this battle. Of course, female athletes take a stand, but it can't fall entirely on our shoulders. We need men, we need coaches, dads, moms, parents, pastors even, people, medical professionals, teachers. We need every single person in this battle to take a stand and understand that silence is complicity. By being silent, you're just as bad and responsible as the people who created these policies that are allowing this to happen.
Riley, you're a hero to all decent people, and I want to thank you for what you do, what you've been doing with your life, and for being on our podcast.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you again. Couldn't be more grateful for your leadership and willingness to stand with women. So thank you, Superintendent Horne.
Thank you, Riley.
Thanks for joining Arizona Schools Chief Tom Horne for Around the Horne. For more information about public education in Arizona, please go to azed.gov. And you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We'll see you next time, Around the Horne.